like Dana, from what you said, pretty close. We're about 43,000 relative to about 48,000 or so this time. But it was probably March, April, May where we really started to see the drop off. And you said June was really where we had a just next to nothing, really 17,000 in revenue for gas tax. So hopefully for the street department's sake, we'll see some updated revenues for the balance of the summer here with the gas tax aspect. So just curious about that. And then was disappointed but not surprised to see Coghlan had filed amended tax returns for 2018-19. So probably expected a refund for them here at some point this year, but not as major as we've seen for some other refunds in the past. So those are the only notes that I saw. Chip, Cheryl, any call outs for Dana's report?
No.
Bank to book looked good as well. Nothing surprising with expenditure or revenue. Pretty major check for $376,000. Any?
That is for the Enterprise Center. That is our third payment. Second 1/3 payment. So
Our third payment.
yeah.
Okay.
Good deal. All right. Nothing else for that. We'll move on to review of appropriation ordinances on the council agenda this evening. Dana, did you want to hit those real quick?
Sure. I'm sorry, I don't have them pulled up at the moment. Let me pull that up.
We're getting some background noise.
There we go. Thanks, Jim. Or Jim. Whichever Jim muted Jim.
Okay, so we have the wage salary ordinance, which was tabled. We plan to, or hope to keep that tabled since we still need to do some updating on that. So nothing really to update there. Ordinance 8/2021, this was introduced last council meeting. So this is just the vote, the second reading and the vote on this one. And the amount has been updated for the new figure for the police department remodel. We put it at 13,000. Let's see what's next. Ordinance 9, water plant operator. So this is to get a new water plant operator because of the more production that's going to be required resulting from Croton Road. This is based on 3/4 of the year at the $18 an hour mark, which was the high end of the salary range, and benefits are included in this figure, $52,500, all from water operating. Then we have ordinance 10/2021 for the dog park. Appropriated the entire $34,000, noting that we will add $17,000 of the donation from Licking Parks District when that's received. We will add that into the capital projects fund once we receive that. And ordinance 11, this is for the road projects that we talked about in the special finance committee last time. North Oregon Street, Upham, Benedict, and Buena Vista. All of these figures here are current from Jack this week. So this is all coming out of capital improvements fund with a transfer that's going to be required from the general fund to supplement the capital improvements fund balance to pay for these. Now, when I was calculating how much to transfer from the general fund, I took into consideration the dog park as well. So that is factored into this calculation. And I wanted to pass along, Teresa added it to the agenda too, the current spreadsheet on where we would stand if all of these were approved. And transfers are in there, all the appropriations are included in there. So what you see on that spreadsheet is if all of these ordinances were to go through, that's what our balances would look like for the end of 2021. And finally, ordinance 12-2021. This is for the incidentals associated with the admin office model. $7 seems to be able to cover it, and that's appropriated from the general fund. So that's it. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Yes.
I guess if I could call out, I just sent an email to Jack, I think Sunday, it might have been, but an updated pricing list for those street projects came out at about 486,300 instead of the 546 I think that we have in here. So we have this as an introduction tonight, but Jack, I assume Dana was on that email that you sent out. So I guess it's worth noting with the street project ordinance 11-2021 that is probably overstated by about $60,000 based off of the adjustments of pricing everything out as one project and combining incidentals. Jack, is that right? So I guess, Dana, for the second reading that we have here in a couple weeks, if we could just make sure to update those numbers. I think you're Dana, I'm sorry.
I said I'm confused. I was not on the email. What's the problem? Wonderful. Okay. Got it. Okay. Wonderful. Yes. Okay. Thank you for that. I'll make sure to update that for the second reading.
I think we just make a note and call that out when we introduce it tonight. I mean, that's going to affect obviously the overall general fund balance of what's transferred there. So that'll definitely put us in a better position from a general fund standpoint. But yeah, I was a little confused looking at those numbers because it looked like pretty much every street that we had there was, I mean, with the exception of North Oregon, about twice as much as what we had reviewed a couple weeks back. So I appreciate you going back and getting kind of reaffirming those numbers, Jack.
Okay, and then I have, if you don't mind, I just have to go back a couple steps for Dana, for the big check that you wrote for the Enterprise Center. What is that water, sewer? Where's that going?
It's a combination of both water and sewer.
Okay.
So I believe it's more heavy on the sewer side. So I allocated
Good.
that based on the total project and the percentage of each of what water.
Okay.
So that's how it was
I thought
allocated.
it was. I just want to make sure I was correct. All
Yes.
right, thank you.
Dana, thank you too for including an updated carryover sheet. That definitely helps kind of put everything into perspective of where we're looking. So based off of that, is there any feedback from committee with respect to the ordinances on tonight? Or any comments or questions for Dana?
Yes.
Yep. Well, I think that's a great question to kind of reaffirm, and I think we talked about that in the previous meeting, just to give them maximum amount of time to design it so we can get it out to bid in a timely fashion. We can take a vote here from committee and kind of use it as a jumping off point, and maybe bringing that up in council when we introduce that, to kind of, like we've done before, almost like a verbal on a purchase, but not wanting to pass an appropriations ordinance as an emergency. Is that something that we could do? Right. Now you need to turn your mic on, Jim, but I can hear you.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So we can use it as a jumping off point and bring that up in council as well for that ordinance specifically, just to give some, if you'd like, just to give some more comfortability over getting them started on that. Anything else about the ordinances for tonight? Yeah, go ahead, Marvin. Anything else, Marvin? Okay. With that, Dana, I'll turn this over to you for item number 5 about the property and casualty insurance renewal and quotes.
Okey-doke. All right, so we're up for our annual renewal for our property and casualty insurance on April 1st. And I was doing some reaching out to Burnham and Flower and other Allison Speck at MVP to get some other quotes on different carriers. There is a new, not necessarily a new to us pool, the public entities pool, and they are the OML certified or recommended pool for cities and villages in Ohio. And the numbers are, they far outweigh any of the assets that our current pool, the Ohio Municipal Joint Self Insurance Pool. They very much outweigh all of the assets and everything and net assets that they have. So it's basically a more comprehensive plan of coverage. Allison Speck would still be our administrator of the plan, even though it's going to be also through Burnham and Flower. Allison would be our face-to-face person, as she currently is. So that wouldn't change. I would go to her for everything, and any claim or any questions she would still handle. This insurance is a lot less expensive by about $7,000-8,000 annually. So right off the bat, it's a big savings for us. And personally, I just feel better with them. I feel better knowing that they are backed by the OML and that they have such a fine track record of claims, and their financials are very, very strong. It seems like a lot of cities and municipalities are leaving the OMJ, the one that we're currently in, and it's showing in their financials. So I don't think they're going to be around much, or they're going to raise their prices to help keep them afloat. So I think it's a good thing that we get away from them and move on to this other pool. So I do have a very comprehensive packet which details everything, and Allison and I and someone from Burnham and Flower, we sat down earlier last week and went through it step by step, page by page, and all the coverages that we've currently had are still there or are better. than what we've had before. So there's really no downside in my opinion. So I think it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, the savings is definitely an attractive aspect of it, considering Village continues to pick up the deductible side. It's interesting too, looking at the participants in the surrounding area. I mean, Heath and Newark, larger entities that make sense. Village of St. Louisville, smaller, maybe a little bit more comparable. But in the township sister pool, you've got Monroe Township, you've got St. Albans, you've got Liberty, those that are surrounding us as well. So I think there's definitely validity to move. At the end of the day, in my opinion, if it's something that you feel more comfortable with, Dana, and who would be dealing with, and there's a savings involved. I mean, just relative to the interpretation by the average employee, is there going to be much difference that anybody would expect to see if we were to move from one to the other?
I don't think there would be any difference. Nothing noted by any employee.
Well, I think the PEP, I mean, the assets, I mean, it's much more secure, well, at least it appears to, definitely has more assets. So I think, Dana, if that's what you think is correct, I have no problem with the change.
Chip, anything?
Ooh, the $6 million, are you talking about which page are you on? Which page do you see? Because there's lots of different coverages. I'm sorry. Page 7. I believe those are all per occurrence. What we currently have, okay. I believe so. I'll have to compare that. I don't have it in front of me, but yes. I believe it is. I believe what we have right now is 5 million, but I don't want to say that with any certainty. I have to look it up. Okay, I will let you know.
Dan, is this something that would require a resolution from council and you're looking for approval from committee, or is this just an independent action?
I believe it's an independent act, although I did reach out to Yaz and wanted to confirm with him that it did not require an act of council. He has yet to get back with me. I know he just had a baby, so he's probably got a lot of things going on, but he's going to let me know for sure. And it being the last meeting before April 1st deadline, I'll let you guys know as soon as I find out from him if it requires an act. I don't think we did last time whenever we moved carriers. It didn't require an act of council, I don't believe. There is, however, something that may require an act of council, and it's something that I have to do a little bit more research on. It's related to employee bonding for surety. And there was evidently a new House bill that was passed that says that entities can use their property and casualty insurance to cover that requirement instead of going and getting additional bond insurance for surety. So that would require a resolution, but that's not something that needs to be performed right away or at the time of renewal. We can do that at any time. So that could be coming down the pike in the future.
Yeah, that's what
That would be good.
Yep. A second. All in favor?
Aye.
So if you need anything else, just send it on down the line. But I know I asked you, I was curious who initiated this. You said the village did. So appreciate you staying on top of it, Dana, and reaching out to put us in a position with what looks to be better coverage for a lower annual expense with no difference. So the offset and savings definitely helps go forward. So appreciate you staying on top of it.
Sure, thank you.
Next up, we have water and sewer security quotes. Jack, I didn't see anything come down. I wasn't sure if you had anything ready or not. So this, in your opinion, is almost a step one, a phase one for the updated security for those two facilities? I mean, honestly, if you look at the projected carryover balances for both of these funds for water and sewer enterprise improvement, the money's certainly there. And if it's a matter of improving the security for those two facilities, unless it's a matter of sourcing out a better quote, which I trust in your due diligence, Jack, I'm not sure there's justification to not move forward with this. In my opinion, Chip, Cheryl, I don't know if you have any comments on these.
I think we should go ahead.
Well, I'll go ahead and make a motion then to move forward with these two quotes, $8,500 for the sewer gate and exterior access and security, and $12,000 for the water. Before we have a second on that, Jack, let me ask you, is that the true quote, or is that elevated a little bit to account for any incidentals that may come? Okay. Well, then I'll keep my motion as is, 8,500 for the sewer and 12,000 for the water. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 3-0. I imagine these would come from water too. Balances in the accounts that, like I said, I don't know why there would be any pushback, in my opinion. Marvin, do you have any comment on this at all? Okay. So you got comments from 4 at least, Jack. So yep. All right. Thanks for bringing that up, Jack. Next item we have here is the East Jersey Street funding, OPWC. We talked about that briefly. Marvin, you brought up the question about moving this application, about the funding for it. Jim, you brought up about moving it to small governments. But Jim, I'll let you take this away with your thoughts and then trying to figure out how to fund it.
Mhm. I think, is it 359,000 plus? Is that it? Local revenues? Okay. Okay, so Jim, my question is, I'll say, so the grant now is the maximum of 500,000, correct? Okay, the loan, how does the loan work? I mean, is that something we're paying again to, or? So you have to, go ahead. How many years was that? I'm sorry. One? Oh, 20. Okay. All right. So now where is this 359,000 coming into play? What is that number? I'm looking on like the second page of that form.
The cash.
Okay, I'm really confused here, Jim. So how much money in total do we have to come up with? I guess that's my question. Is it the 359 plus the 293, or is it just the 359? I'm confused.
Yeah, so that's as it stands right now. But to Jim's point, the maximum grant for the small government, small cities, is 500,000. So if you max out the grant at 500,000 and you add the difference to the cash to up our score at say 406, you get it to the loan to the cash side. Yeah, difference of 46,000. You essentially have 42% grant, and the balance is split between the loan and the cash. At this point, I mean, there isn't even enough. I mean, there would be just enough in the budget stabilization, but there's no way we're going to spend the entirety of the budget stabilization on cash for East Jersey Street, in my opinion. That's my opinion. The other caveat that is out there is the pandemic relief payment coming from the federal government for Johnstown, which, from what I can tell, 50% should be coming in the next 2 months, if I understand that correctly, from what the OML has sent out. Is that right, Jim? And Dana, is that what you read as well?
Okay.
Well, what I would, to that end too, if we put no through trucks on Jersey for that period, if you're trying to keep that road that's most likely going to filter down to Douglas, and if Jersey isn't ready for it, Douglas sure isn't ready for it, based off of the improvements done to that road, what, 6 years ago, 5 years ago at this point? So just food for thought relative to Marvin's call out. But to that end, with the cure period for this being, go, Chip, were you saying something? Well, that's what I was talking through here. The 31st is the cure period. We don't know, to your point, and what I've read too is I don't think the funds from the relief payment from the federal government would qualify to come from that directly as it's listed. I don't think it's listed in any of these, so I don't know if we can count it directly as a contribution. SIB loan, potentially. I would continue to ask the question because I'm hesitant really for many more loans, popping on here and continuing to leverage, our liability on the debt service side. I would definitely want to leverage Dana's expertise with ensuring that from a, debt to income ratio and a revenue standpoint, that if we are going to take on additional loan money, even at 3%, that we're comfortable with where that's going to continue to put us go forward. We've done a lot with bonding and other loans that we've taken on for infrastructure. Not that it's not warranted, but just want to make sure that we're continuing to protect our financial footprint going forward too, and not over leveraging, that position. But I think it's worth exploring any option that we can to be as creative as possible, provided it keeps us in a good financial position to try and put in for this loan. So if it's for this project, if it's the SIB loan, or if it's cash from another source, wherever we can find it that isn't the budget stabilization fund, then I would be in favor of moving forward with exploring it. And then we can always convene a special finance meeting right before it to make the decision on putting in for it or not, based off of what those questions come back with.
Well, Ben, why don't we, I feel more comfortable with what you just proposed too, because I'm worried about how much we have to pay in loans, because we're getting up there. I would say, what is it? Can we meet next Tuesday at like 5 o'clock? Dana, would that give you time to get this together so we can make a final decision?
Yeah, that should be enough time. Let's see, next Tuesday. I can do next Tuesday.
I
Would
know
that be
that-
okay, Jim?
Perhaps this is the topic we can take up in safety and service. I think, Marvin, since you brought it up to Jack and Chief, if maybe this is a topic they can take away and we can add this to safety and service. Okay. But to that end, Marvin, are there any other questions financially related to the Jersey Street project? Yeah. No, absolutely agree. Fair enough. No, thanks for bringing up the concern, Marvin. So one more question, Jim, and then just recap the East Jersey Street piece. When is the cash typically due for these types of arrangements when a project is awarded? When the project is completed?
Yes, that is accurate.
So it's just our percentage of as it comes along as the project progresses.
Yes.
Okay. Well, to that end, then we'll, if everybody's comfortable, we'll call a special meeting for next Tuesday, March 23rd at 5 p.m. for Finance Committee to review the specifics of this East Jersey Street funding, pending discussion with Hall to go back and look at the most efficient and beneficial way to structure the application for small cities to further fund East Jersey. That'll give staff time to kind of digest what we talked about here, the engineering firm to get back to us, and then we should also have had this Thursday follow up with OML. That's a kind of a group chat to understand some of the requirements for this federal money coming down to see how it may be applied in a general sense and if it even has any relationship to being able to fund East Jersey. And then Jim, you're going to reach out to you look at the SIB loan piece as well, potentially, or not? Is that something we're going to talk about on Tuesday too? For East Jersey Street? My opinion would be that with as priority as we're making Jersey Street, any rock that we can overturn is going to be beneficial to inform a decision on Tuesday. So it's a quote unquote easy ask to do over the next week. If you're able to do that, I think that would be just good to have that information at the very least. Thank you. And the only other wrench that I'll throw into this is, and I'm just putting it out there as we're talking about cash, we're talking about availability. The quickest way to make sure if we want to fund East Jersey is if we put off the projects that we just talked about on the north side of town, because the cash is there between CIP and general fund. I think we've had the discussions about doing the north side of town projects because of how those roads are shaping up right now. But if it's a matter of priority over priority, I'm just going to put it out there so that we can have the discussion. And again, in the interest of due diligence and overturning every rock, is it the north side of town with North Oregon, Upham, and everything else like that, Benedict and Buena Vista, or is it putting the eggs in Jersey? And then if East Jersey doesn't come through, we can go back to North Oregon, maybe, but then you're talking about a delayed time period for construction, engineering, and everything else. So, yeah. Cheryl, do you have a comment?
No.
Okay. The only thing I was going to say is Marvin, absolutely. Jack made the recommendation at the last couple meetings. We were talking through that without the assumption that Jersey Street had the potential of moving on to a different committee for different consideration. So new information presented itself, which is why we're entertaining it now. Absolutely understand the optics of it, but also understand the financials of both. And so I'd be, if I didn't bring it up just as a point of conversation, knowing full well, really where the conversation was going to go. And we've already had the discussions about the north side of town, but again, would be remiss if I didn't bring it up just as a point of conversation, because the cash is there if we wanted to and made it a high enough priority. But I agree with staying the course on where we are with the north side of town. And absolutely. It's been thoroughly vetted at this point for the 2 years that we've put it in and the multiple years we've been talking about it. So, yeah. Any other comments with East Jersey? I think we're in a good spot, and we'll meet together next Tuesday at 5 to kind of review everything and figure out what's next. So, Jim, thanks for bringing it up as an option, and we'll see where we can get with the questions that we've asked. Next, we have long-term capital commitments, item number 8. So this is kind of on the heels of just really everything that we've talked about today, and kind of in a similar fashion to what we've talked about with the water and sewer facilities over the last few years. We started funds for those, sub-funds in each of those, I think the enterprise accounts, either enterprise or operating, I can't recall, but we're putting away money in each of those to affect the long-term expansion plans for water and sewer, because we know it's going to happen. So we put that money away. So the question is, with the long-term capital commitments that we have right now, the intersection at North Main and Leafydale, the Edwards Road project out there, 2029. I put West Coshocton on there for this phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, whatever we want to call it, which is the additional turn lane from the bridge up to essentially Wendy's. Just want to make sure that we're doing the same, we're performing the same due diligence for those projects that we know are going to happen that we were for water and sewer. And we're saving money like we did for the original Route 62 project over years, instead of having big chunks come out of our annual revenues on a yearly basis. So first question is, do we think that as a committee, Chip and Cheryl, Dana, Jim, Jack, that if that is a good idea to do moving forward, is to kind of have a sub-savings account, quote unquote, for these projects to make sure that we have money when they arise and we're saving ahead of time. Do we think that's a good idea, number one?
Let me just say, I think it's a great idea, and I would recommend that we set up several individual CIP funds for these instead of just savings accounts within the fund, similar to what we did with the Route 62 project, because we can put money in these for up to 10 years. And if you don't spend it on that set project within the 10 years, then it goes back to the fund from which it originally came. But I think these will all be spent within 10 years, unless, something happens and plans change. There is guidance from the ORC, and it allows you to set up those specific funds for these projects. So that would be my recommendation.
I totally agree, because I don't want us to lose track of these major projects that's coming up in the years in the future. And this way we're projecting out, we're preparing for the future. I think it's something we need to do. I just think it's a smart thing to do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that-
Mhm.
Yeah, I think outside of the BWC dividends that we received last year, the new homes in the village really offset the revenue loss that we would have realized last year. So that is only going to continue to. Well, over the last several years, for sure. Not just,
Yeah,
yeah, it's been the last several years though, absolutely. But yeah, you're absolutely right. The revenue should only continue to increase. And to that end, the next question was really it sounds as if we're all on the same page that this is a good do. So then the next question, like you said, Chip, is the specific dollar amounts and the deadlines to be able to understand what we would need to contribute on an annual basis, which at the end of the day, it really boils down to an annual budget discussion conversation that we probably have later this year for 2022 going into next year. So we know that we would have funds we need to set aside for North Main and Leafydale, with the roundabout being the more expensive option and the regular signaled interchange being the cheaper option. We haven't made a decision which way that we're going to go, but we're planning on and have submitted for the roundabout. So that's probably the highest liability dollar amount that we would see for the village for that project. And then Edwards Road, we know that and what that's coming down the pipeline. So then the West Coshocton Street project, Jim, this was maybe a question more for you and Jack. Knowing that ODOT is fully funding that at the level that they've projected, is there any village liability in that project? Or is it really just if we decide that we want something different and or above and beyond than what they're providing, then we would have that liability? At this point, there's $0 expected from the village for that next phase, right? And that's something we decided that isn't, we're not moving forward with, is the decorative poles there, right? It's whatever they want to put in there at this point. Okay. So then it sounds, what's that? Okay. That's an excellent point. I was just saying that's an excellent point that Marvin brought up. Okay, so it sounds like at this point there are two funds then that we would look at setting up would be specific for the North Main Leafydale intersection and Edwards Road 2029. Is there anything else, Jim or Jack, that you can think of, or Dana, that we would want to set up? Any other projects that make sense to do? Everything else I think is funded. I don't think we have any more projects out like that that aren't already funded by bonded monies.
Nothing comes to my mind at the moment.
Okay. So Dana, then from a procedural standpoint, we'll probably want to go ahead and make a motion in a second to add those in, but I don't think the discussion would really start with funding either of those until later this year for 2022. So Chip or Cheryl, any other questions or comments on that?
No, sounds good.
All right, I'll go ahead and make a motion then to create sub CIP accounts for the North Main and Leafydale intersection, as well as one for Edwards Road 2029.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor? Perfect. Good deal. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you. Yeah, it was, it's good. Cheryl had brought it up. And it's a good idea to do to make sure that we're protecting ourselves going forward while still spending money on the here and now and everything else that comes up. We know that we got things that we got coming up. Water and sewer rate discussion number 9. Dana, just a quick call out, more of a curiosity. I know that annually we had built into the bonded monies conversation about raising those rates, I think a maximum of 5% to cover the cost of the bonded monies. So there's been a lot going on at the first quarter of this year. I just wasn't sure and just wanted to ask if there was a projected timeline or what your thoughts were for that.
Yes, I have not had a chance to look into those rates or do any analysis on that at this point. I can most likely have something for the April Finance Committee meeting. I will aim for that.
Okay. 'Cause I know that typically around the time frame too that you look at the disbursement of those revenues into the debt service as well as the operating accounts and everything like that as well. So just more of a curiosity. I appreciate that. And then I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Yes.
Excellent. True story. So you said 3 to 5 million at both plants? 6 million. Perfect. Perfect.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Jack, I would think, to your point, you would want something similar to what we have right now, um, because the assumption would be then that the maintenance, the operation, the apples to apples comparison, granted, you're talking about different construction companies, different, construction time periods, but if it's the same type of tower, then you would expect very similar type of operations and stuff of which you're already very familiar with. So then you're not moving between two different types of, operation styles because you've got two different types of, water tower designs. So,
Mm-hmm.
mm, what was our projected cost?
Yeah. Well, Jack, you're the expert compared to the rest of us. And if that's the one you think is the best, I'll go with you and say that's the one we should go with.
I agree. Yeah.
Great. Mhm.
I'm all in with whatever, that looks the most impressive to me. It's the most similar to what we have right now, this similar type of operations and maintenance. And it's right in line with our, original bid projection. So I'm fine with going with yours, like Cheryl said. I can bring this up or defer to you when we go through the council, the finance report, and you can take over the conversation from there, Jack, if that's okay. If that's how you want to do it. Thanks. Last second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. All right. I had an item for other business. We can bring it up next Tuesday. Not a big deal. Anybody else have anything for other business? We'll go ahead and entertain a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
This conference is no longer being recorded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
See you in the
See you
next
guys.
meeting.